come on in, come on in. Uncle Shay Shay, it's time for you to come down to the head of the congregation here because we got to talk. We took off a day and more stuff just keeps coming out about this story. And I have a feeling we haven't even scratched the surface of everything that we're going to end up hearing in relationship to this Shannon Sharpe lawsuit that was recently filed. But come on in. If you are not familiar with me, my name is Aries Rose, and welcome to Aries Rose TV. Here we talk about movies, streaming shows, TV shows, celebrity, pop culture, world news, local news, politics, basically anything I find interesting. I come on and discuss it with my Aries crew. And you know the drill. If you are a returning Aries crew member, leave hashtag Aries crew in the comments. If you're a first time watcher, leave first time watch in the comments. I want to give you a shout out for stopping by and spending part of your time here. And if you can like the video on your way in, greatly appreciate it. It goes a long way, helps out the channel a lot, and it's also a free way for you to support. So we got to talk about Shannon Sharpe, who's got to be having probably one of the worst weeks of his life. I'm sure when the week ended last week, he had no idea his week was going to look like this. Before this whole lawsuit hit, I was hearing that Shannon Sharpe was looking for a place to have his podcast show, and he was in the market, and it was, potentially going to start a bidding war because the contract was up with where he was previously doing his podcast. And next thing I know, after I hear there's a potential $100 million deal on the table, boom, I'm hearing about a lawsuit. And this lawsuit, initially, when I first heard that it was filed by Tony Buzbee, I gave Shannon Sharpe the benefit of the doubt because I was thinking about when Jay-Z's lawsuit came out. Tony Buzbee's client essentially ended up dropping that lawsuit with prejudice, meaning it cannot be filed again. And to me, that just states that there wasn't really any evidence that linked Jay-Z to being a part of that case. And when I did hear the accuser in that Jay-Z lawsuit do the interview with, I believe it was NBC, that's when I questioned, did he actually talk to this person? Because they don't even seem like they have an actual case or that they ever actually interacted with Diddy or Jay-Z. Like the whole story sounded shaky to begin with, but I'm thinking, what attorney would risk their license by bringing on a false case, especially for somebody as high profile as Jay-Z? Like, that's going to get a lot of attention. If you're going to tie him to such serious allegations, you better come with some evidence and some proof, which to me hasn't happened to this day. I haven't seen a thing that would make me question if Jay-Z was actually involved in that situation. As a matter of fact, Jay-Z is suing Tony Buzbee and the Jane Doe in that case for defamation of character. And I completely understand that because by that being filed when Lion King, the newest Lion King Mufasa movie was coming out, and his daughter was a voice of one of the lions in there, as well as Beyonce, that came out at the same time that premiere was happening. And that could have had a really negative impact, not to mention on his own personal life, but on his business opportunities when you're tying to somebody to such serious allegations, especially when the young girl said she was a minor at the time. So kudos to Jay-Z for fighting that. It's unfortunate that it happened to begin with, but he definitely stood his ground. And I think that Shannon Sharpe thought he could kind of ride that wave because even when he gave his video statement on Tuesday, he referenced Jay-Z, which I think he wanted people to use that as a guide to kind of question anything that comes from Tony Buzbee. And Tony Buzbee did have to eat the L on that one when it came to Jay-Z. That one was just all around a bad look. But it appears he's learned from those mistakes because he's come with at least some sort of receipts or evidence as it relates to the Shannon Sharpe case, so much to the point that Shannon Sharpe has stepped away from ESPN, at least temporarily. So he's saying right now. So let's read that. We got some reporting from TMZ to go over. Then we're going to read the actual statement that Shannon Sharpe had posted on his Instagram about it. So this reporting is coming from TMZ. Shannon Sharpe says he's stepping away from his ESPN gig 4 days after a woman claimed in a lawsuit he raped her. The Pro Hall of Famer announced the decision on his X page on Thursday afternoon, so this was just yesterday, stating he's temporarily leaving his seat at the First Take desk in order to handle false and disruptive allegations set against me. We're going to take a little quick pause, and let's do some comments. Victor, hello. Thank you so much for being here. If you see the picture we got behind me today, we are talking about Shannon Sharpe. And to get caught up on the lawsuit and some of the things that have been going on with him, you can check out my previous lives. They are available to kind of get caught up on this situation. It's ever evolving and there's something new coming out every day. And today we're talking about the statement that he issued for stepping down from ESPN, which is relatively a big deal because just a few days ago, Stephen A. Smith spoke about on his show, on the Stephen A. Smith show, I want to say it was Tuesday, he spoke about he didn't know what Sharpe's future was going to be at ESPN, that the head honchos over there were watching what was going on and monitoring the situation closely. So I'm not entirely surprised that this is where we ended up landing because I felt like Stephen A. Smith saying that was kind of prefacing something to come next with related to that. So this isn't an entire surprise, but it is a little bit. So we're still going to go into it. And Amir, thank you so much for being here. And he's being sued for SA and for battery. So the woman that brought this case on, the Jane Doe, says these things occurred between them. He's got a little different take of what happened. And here we are right now. It's kind of like it's playing out in the court of public opinion. And let's see what more went into this reporting here from TMZ. So Sharpe added, as of now, he's planning to return to his spot next to Stephen A. Smith later this summer, right around the start of the NFL's preseason. In his statement, Sharpe thanked his fans for all of the support he's received this week. After Jane Doe stated in a lawsuit Sunday he actually assaulted her in October 2024 and January 2025 following a nearly 2-year-long relationship. As part of his announcement, Sharpe maintained he committed no wrongdoing, saying the relationship in question was 100% consensual. Sharpe first hit ESPN airwaves back in 2023 after Smith recruited him to be his partner on First Take. In February 2024, he agreed to an extension to stay on the program. Despite Sunday's filing, he appeared on both Monday and Tuesday's episodes of the show without issue. An ESPN spokesperson told TMZ Sports following Sharpe's announcement, "This is a serious situation, and we agree with Shannon's decision to step away." Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think that he should have stepped away from the ESPN show or just let it play out in court and still showed up? I'm going to read his statement here that was posted on his Instagram page, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts. So it reads, quote, "My statement is found here, and this is the truth. The relationship in question was 100% consensual. At this juncture, I am electing to step aside temporarily from my ESPN duties. I will be devoting this time to my family and responding and dealing with the false and disruptive allegations set against me. I plan to return to ESPN at the start of the NFL preseason. I sincerely appreciate the overwhelming and ongoing support I have received from my family, fans, friends, and colleagues." Shannon Sharpe, end quote. So for me, I personally think that he had to do that. I don't think he did that because he wanted to. I think he had a choice, and Disney let him know that it would be probably in his best interest to sit on the sidelines while this kind of plays out, and they'll probably revisit it after whatever the outcome is going to be about whether or not he's going to be able to remain on there. ESPN is owned by Disney. Disney, at least in theory, is a family-oriented business. Family-oriented stuff generally is what they promote on their channels. So that in and of itself is not going to be a good look to be associated with their organization, especially because people know that he's on ESPN and associate him with that as well. So they care about their image and what people that are under their umbrella are doing and how they are representing themselves and representing the organization. Now, we don't know whether or not Shannon Sharpe did anything that she accused him of, but there are text messages that have come out. And in one of them, she did say, "No means no, Shannon. I cried when you left. because I told you I wanted you to wear protection and not to put it in my peach, and you did it anyway. And that's a paraphrasing, that's not an exact quote, but things like that don't look so good. And when their age difference was really known, Shannon Sharpe was in his mid 50s, maybe 53, 54 when he met her, and she was 19 years old. Yeah, I don't think there's anything you could tell me that would make me be okay with that age difference. You're on a completely different spectrum of life. You've lived your life. You lived your 20s, you lived your 30s, you lived your 40s. And I don't believe that this young girl he was dealing with has children, but he does have children. So she hadn't even really lived her life. And she was just honestly coming out of being a teen and in the beginning stages of being an adult. So this world that they were in, that I've heard associated with BDSM, and I'm not familiar with that, but that's what they say a lot of this stuff seems to be sounding like in their communications with each other. That's an awfully young age for somebody of Shannon Sharpe's age. And I'm a little bit surprised at him for not being what I think is more thoughtful about what he was doing. When you reach the heights that he has reached, you have to be careful about every move you make because you're going to be scrutinized more than anybody people don't know. You're going to make a headline more than people someone is not familiar with. And then you also have the image that you've crafted for people to perceive you as and see you as. And then things like this come out, and that just completely distorts that image to people. And that's going to be a tough thing to come back from. Sometimes the court of public opinion can be worse than actual court. And it just, to me, seemed like for a person who, from the outside, looked like they were being very strategic and thoughtful about their career and their life and the decisions that they made. This was one that he wasn't clearly using the big head to think with. And I think that's come back to bite him for sure. Again, not saying that he is guilty, but what I am saying from what I have seen, I definitely see him differently now. Even if he is found to be innocent, some things will still remain. He's still engaged in a relationship that I believe was inappropriate. Legal because she was over 18, but I still believe was inappropriate. So I'm looking at you a little bit differently because I'm thinking, what do you want with a 19-year-old girl? Like, what could you possibly be talking about? When I heard the audio, you could hear her voice sounds like a kid. And to me, I just can't that I can't get past that. That would be too much. And she looks young. So there's no question here of like, oh, she might be this age, but she was given 20, 25. No, she was given 19, just, just turned 19. That's what she was given. And she still has a very baby face to me. So that's got some questions in my mind of what are we going for? And why are you talking to somebody of this age this way? There's just some questions. There are some things. So that's part of where I feel like maybe no matter what happens with this case, how do you kind of bounce back from that? Because I can tell you right now, my 19-year-old daughters, any of them are 19, cannot bring home somebody 56 and expect me to be okay with that. And I just want to know what Shannon thought was really going to come out of that. Maybe he wasn't looking for a serious relationship with her, but the optics of it, no. If 30, 40, no problem. 19, 20, eh, legal, but not okay. Not okay. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of age gaps? Do you think there's such thing as too big of an age gap in relationships? Very curious to see what you think about that. If you think there should be one, or should you be around the same age, close to the same age, let me know. You'll keep that conversation going. So in light of Shannon Sharpe stepping away, Stephen A. Smith has issued his statement on it. And then I'm also going to do a live because another live this weekend after I get a chance to watch Don Lemon's interview with Shannon Sharpe's attorney, because I was wondering why he's giving him the advice he's giving him. I don't know if I would have told my client to release those text messages. That to me, um, And then her identity, she did not put her identity in the lawsuit. She filed as Jane Doe. And then Shannon goes on to release who he believes it is or who he knows it is. I'm not sure how that may work, but he gives a name. And then he also talks about stuff that she does on the internet and gives the name she can be found on that. And it came off like he's trying to use her career and what she does against her, but that's also why you were dealing with her. So if that makes her something questionable, what does that make you? And that to me, that was a bad look. So I'm like, well, you can't really shame her for something that you were coming to her for or services that you were wanting. So you can't really try to use that against her as if that makes her a bad person or makes anything that she's saying any less valid. And that's what bothers me about it. Like, well, you were cool with dealing with her, knowing she was young. You were clearly okay with whatever she was doing. Maybe, I don't know if he knew she was doing that or not, but he's the one who tied her to doing that in the name you can find her on OF. And that then you want to try to use that as saying something about her character or the kind of person that she is, or I don't know if he thought it was going to help him or not, but to me it didn't make him look good. It made me really sad that that's how it would be addressed. That stuff was really explicit, definitely inappropriate. I think I'd have a heart attack if I saw that being sent to my 19, 20-year-old child, or they were sending that to somebody of that age. There's just that's just too much. I'd have way too many questions. Um, and I want to say somebody said that that's even younger than his kids. And that, yeah, see, that's too much. When you're getting into a zone where you could be their grandparent, we really got to rethink what are we going for here? It's just not a good look. It is not a good look. I don't know if she's blackmailing him, but he seems like he was a willing participant in things, and he's saying that she was, and that nothing that happened between them was not consensual. But that's not what she feels like on some instances. So I want to say that the lawsuit starts with like you can say yes 99 times, but no still means no. And that's where it's gonna. I don't know if it'll be a he said, she said. What evidence either side has to prove their innocence, but to me, the text messages don't make Shannon sound innocent. It makes me question why are you engaging in this kind of conversation with somebody that age, a man of your stature? You're doing big things out here, making big money. You are associated with big, prominent names. To be making these types of mistakes is just insane to me. Like you have too much money to not have any thought in your mind about how quickly that can go away. So they have been playing clips of interview he did with Cat Williams, which I mean, that's probably gonna always be around as long as the internet's around. That was just one of them interviews for the ages, right? But one of the things Cat Williams brought up on there is, he's I guess particular about who he dates because he said, in 2 weekends you could have everything taken away from you. And Shannon Sharpe's kind of just sitting there going with it. And I'm thinking, was anything resonating in your head about you're putting yourself in the same position? Because Cat Williams was referencing what happened to Jonathan Majors. Not saying one is guilty or not. I'm just saying career definitely took a hit and hasn't been the same since Jonathan Majors had his situation. And Megan Good's helping him make somewhat of a comeback, but he may not have fully won over everybody, and his career is certainly not where it was before that situation happened with his ex-girlfriend. Because he was on top, he was right on top, he was right there. Boom, gone. All of that gone. No Marvel, no more Kang the Conqueror. That's out the window because of what went on between him and his ex-girlfriend, and who knows how long he'll be having to pay for that situation before he'll get back on track. But he's found love. Megan Good married him. She stayed with him. She stayed with him through the trial. So, I mean, at least his personal life appears to be okay. We'll see how the career builds back up. But he's trying to get back out there. But Shannon was in a different spot. And I don't know if he was hearing what people were trying to say to him. Monique, they played a clip of Monique telling him he needed to get himself an old fat gal. That's who he needs to be with and stop trying to run around with the young girls. And did not take heed. And some of those decisions by not using the big brain can come back to bite you. And it just looked like one of these situations. I don't want to say he got finessed, but I almost feel like he got finessed by a 19, 20-year-old. And you had more to lose than they did. And that's where I thought if you thought the messages made her look bad, people are going to hold you to a higher standard than her. And you're older than her. So you're just going to be looked at as having more wisdom, and you just should have known better. And to be honest, you should have known better. And I like Shannon Sharpe. I'm sure this is not anything he intended to happen. I don't believe he's necessarily a bad person and that he meant to be hurtful to this young woman or any of this to happen. But nonetheless, it happened. And you put yourself in a situation that allowed it to happen. And that's what's concerning about the whole situation is I just would have expected more. So I'd say I'm a little bit disappointed in him for sure. And just watching those interviews back, knowing what we know now, thinking none of your behavior struck you as maybe this isn't a good idea. I need to stop while I'm ahead. That's one thing. So I hope there's some lessons being learned from this situation. Definitely your decisions in the past can come back to haunt you in the future at the most inopportune time. Let me know in the comments if you think he can still pull off the $100 million deal, if that will still happen for the podcast, or do you think that this could affect his ability to maintain that $100 million deal for a podcast contract? And before we wrap up this live, let's get into Stephen A. Smith reacts to Shannon leaving ESPN amid grape lawsuit. This is reporting from TMZ. Stephen A. Smith has an opinion on just about everything, and that includes a grape lawsuit involving his coworker Shannon Sharpe, who is now stepping away from ESPN amid the legal process. Stephen A. reacted to Sharpe's decision to temporarily leave his duties on First Take in a Friday episode of his YouTube show. The media personalities are friends, and folks are interested in how Stephen's processing Shannon's legal issues. For Stephen, he says, it's his personal opinion Shannon is not guilty, though he admits he wasn't there for the allegations and only knows what's been reported in the media. Stephen says he finds it hard to believe